While it's unlikely that you'll be able to control when you need urgent medical care, timing can mean everything. A new study suggests Canadians who are admitted to a hospital on the weekend are at a slightly higher risk of dying. The CBC's Cass Rusey explains.
Most hospitals are pretty much a non-stop operation, open for business 24/7. But are they less safe on weekends?
My mother was sick. She had leukemia, and we had no access to anybody over the weekend.
Would you try to avoid going to the hospital on the weekend?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it.
It's called the weekend effect, a phrase first coined by this Toronto doctor and a colleague a dozen years ago.
What is the weekend effect?
So the weekend effect is the concept that people coming to the hospital on a weekend have a higher risk of death or adverse outcome compared to people coming to hospital on a weekday.
The Canadian Institute for Health Information looked at 4 million urgent hospital admissions over 3 years. It found that Canadians who are admitted on the weekend have higher odds of dying than those admitted on weekdays. The group most affected were heart attack patients. The study showed that out of 1 million plus hospital admissions every year, 75,000 urgent medical and surgical patients died. The study's author says about 400 of those may be due to the weekend effect. So what's the cause? Reduced hospital staff, fewer hospital services. At Toronto Western Hospital, they found a way to counteract the weekend effect, turning its stroke centre into a 7-day-a-week operation.
Is that hard?
Yeah.
So that when Shirley Spence came to the hospital on a Sunday with signs of a stroke, she had access to a full medical team and an MRI.
The whole service is provided 7 days a week because stroke is not a disease that looks at the calendar and decides to present just on weekdays.
But a warning for all patients, don't avoid the hospital just because it's the weekend.
So the first thing that I would advise against is delaying your care. If you're sick enough to decide to come into hospital, don't worry about which day of the week it is.
Because any medical care, any day of the week, is better than nothing. Cass Rusey, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's bring in CBC News medical contributor Dr. Danielle Martin now for her take on the report. Dr. Martin, we've seen the report. How do Canadian hospitals stack up?
Actually, this is really a good news story for Canadian hospitals. Although the study does find that there is a small weekend effect for some categories of patients, we stack up very well internationally. So our weekend effect is at about 4%, whereas in the US and the UK, similar studies have found a weekend of effect about 10%. The other thing that I think is really good news about this is that there are some categories of patients for whom there's no weekend effect at all. That includes obstetrical patients, so pregnant women, children or pediatrics, and patients with mental health issues. So overall, actually, I think we measure up quite well internationally, and in that sense, it's a good news piece.
But there is still this weekend effect. What's your takeaway?
So I think the most important thing is Canadians should not be worried about going and seeking medical care on the weekend. We're talking about a risk of when people come to the hospital and are admitted for emergency issues, we have a 6% risk of dying at baseline on a weekday and 6.1% on the weekend. So it's statistically significant, but it's small. I think the takeaway for hospitals is for us to look at our processes and see, are we actually able to ascertain if there is an issue in our organizations, how we can fix things, whether that's in terms of staffing levels, physician levels, the way that we run our imaging departments in order to make that care more seamless. So there's always more work to be done.
Okay, Dr. Martin, thank you.
Thank you.